Alright, good evening folks, it's Enforcer Matt, and welcome back to another short war video, and today we have very big news out of Europe, Ukraine, and Russia, and let's jump right into it. This morning, Lithuania reports that Belarus sent over 11 smuggler balloons into Lithuanian airspace, disrupting the Vilnius airport for over 30 hours, as some speculate it was a Russian probing operation. Meanwhile, in Moscow, a major fire has erupted near the location of a manufacturing facility for Russian drones as firefighters attempt to put out the blaze, and while that fire was blazing, Ukraine also struck Russia's Nizhny Novgorod oil refinery last night, causing significant damage to the facility. And we also have breaking news that the US has accused Cuba of sending approximately 5,000 Cuban nationals to fight in Russia's war in Ukraine. So very big news across many different fronts, and let's jump right into our first article, which goes to Anton Gerashenko. And we are getting some pretty big news today that the Vilnius airport inside of Lithuania suspended operations on the evening of October the 4th, which was last night, due to the appearance of unidentified balloons in the sky, according to LRT, and the objects were observed in the Baltoji-Volki area, and air traffic disruptions lasted for several hours, and the flights had to be redirected to Kaunas and Riga to get these flights away from the danger area. So right here on the map, you can see this is actually Flight Radar 24 from last night, and there are several commercial airliners and holding patterns outside of Vilnius airport, and that's because the airspace around Vilnius airport was being disrupted because of these unknown balloons that were flying over the airport. So nobody at first was really sure what these balloons were, and nobody was really sure exactly what it was. It could have been a drone or a balloon, and they were trying to figure that out. But in the meantime, though, the Vilnius airport was being disrupted the entire time. So that sent people into a panic last night. So moving into our next post here, this one goes to Null Reports. And we learned the culprit today about why that airspace was temporarily disrupted, and we've learned that Lithuanian border guards intercepted over 11 balloons carrying contraband cigarettes from Belarus, and the operation disrupted Vilnius for over 30 hours, and around 18,000 packs of cigarettes were seized during the unusual tobacco airdrop. So right here is allegedly a picture of one of these balloons that came in from Belarus and apparently was launched from Belarusian territory, and it was carrying a pack of cigarettes at the very bottom of it. So it looks like a weather balloon to me. So nothing too high-tech, nothing too crazy, and some people were saying it was a smuggling operation, and some people were saying it was a Russian probing operation. So right now we really don't know, but considering the recent Russian drone incursions into the Baltic state airspace, I would not put it past the Belarusians to be doing this as some type of probing operation around the area, or they could simply be doing it to disrupt the airspace at the airport to cause chaos inside of a NATO country. But right now that's all up to speculation, but all we know at the moment is 11 of these balloons went into the airspace, and they had to wait for them to land and actually take them down before they were able to reopen the airport. So that was a very big disruption at that airport in Vilnius. But moving into our next post here, this one goes to Phytux Network. And also we actually have a video showing one of those balloons right here that at the time was unidentified flying in the area of the Vilnius airport, and the video has been verified by Phytux Network according to their post. So let's take a look. Once again, it's at night, it's really hard to see anything, and it seems to be status quo right now. All the videos we're getting of airspace violations in NATO countries are pretty much hard to see because they're all at night, and it's hard to see at night obviously because there's no lights. So let's take a look and see what we can spot of this balloon flying from Belarus into Lithuanian airspace. So right there on your screen, that ghostly shape right in the middle, that is actually one of these smuggler balloons that was flying from Belarus into Lithuania, and you can kind of see the payload right at the bottom of the balloon. So that is the object, or at least one of them flying in. So the Lithuanians were able to detect that and also close the airspace in time to make sure there was no accidents relating to these balloons right here. But right now the big debate is, was it a smuggler balloon or was it something else? That's the big debate right now, because of course they were just carrying cigarettes, but it could be a cover for something much sinister. But moving into our next post here, this one goes to Osen Technical. And also, while Lithuania was fighting off these balloons flying into their airspace, we also saw that Ukraine was laying down the law on the Russians last night. We did see that overnight, the Ukrainian attack drone successfully struck Russia's Kostovo oil refinery, setting it ablaze. And the orbital fire monitoring data from NASA shows a significant, massive fire at the eastern end of the complex, and this is one of the largest in Russia. So a very big hit once again, and just a long series of strikes on these Russian oil facilities. And as you can see right here, this is the NASA firm's data showing a massive fire on the location of the eastern end of the plant, which is a very significant part of it. And also you can see right here, there's a picture from the initial blast point right there when these Ukrainian drones struck. So it was definitely hit in a very big way, and this is definitely not the first time this one has been struck, and it's been actually hammered multiple times before. So it looks like the workers are going to be repairing the same old parts yet again. So moving into our next post here, we actually have a video from Null Reports, a very short video showing this thing on fire. So let's take a look. So taking a look out there in the distance, there is the refinery on fire right there, glowing like Chernobyl out there in the distance. And once again, that is not the first time that thing has been struck right there. So quite a hit indeed. And also here's another piece of clip right here. You can actually see there is some smoke over the horizon. And also here's another view of it very much up close. And that's actually one of the screenshots we saw earlier a minute ago in the last post. But a very, very big hit on that refinery. So it is boiling out there, and that's not going to help the Russian fuel crisis whatsoever. So very bad for the Russians, but good for Ukraine. But moving into our next post here, this one goes to War Translated. And that is not the only bad news that Russia has gotten today, because we've also heard that a building in Moscow's Technopolis Special Economic Zone caught fire today, and apparently, allegedly, this is where companies producing drones are located. So we do have a video of this. We're not really sure how this fire got started. It could have been maybe sabotage. It could have been maybe an accident. We're not really sure right now, but it happened in a very high-end part of Moscow where they're actually designing things for the military and also designing things for technology reasons for the Russians. So let's take a look at the video here and see this massive fire blazing right in Moscow. So right there you can see it is blaze central out here, and that thing is going up in smoke. It's a huge fire, by the way. That is not a small fire by any means. So like I said, we don't know what started this. It seems a little bit odd that such a large fire started on a spot that is crucial to the Russian government. Seems a little bit odd to me, but of course we are seeing this massive fire from a different angle right here, and you can see it is encompassing a large part of this Technopolis, this park here of technology. So very interesting to see that, and once again I'll be curious to see exactly what started that. Right now we do not know. But jumping into our next post here, this one's going to go to Max25. And right here in this post, we do have a bombshell report. We are getting word right now that the U.S. says that Cuba is sending 5,000 Cuban nationals to fight in Russia's war against Ukraine. And according to U.S. estimates, between 1,000 and 5,000 Cubans are currently fighting in the Russian armed forces. And Washington has urged its allies to avoid cooperation with Havana at the UN meetings, citing its ties to the Kremlin. So not only is North Korea sending troops, we're also seeing Cuba send troops as well, and also we're seeing China provide some type of support through dual-use goods, and also maybe even military goods directly to Russia. So Russia is certainly being supported by many different countries, mainly a bunch of small countries that really don't have much economic force behind them, like Cuba and North Korea, but also bigger ones like China as well. So very disturbing to hear that, and it sounds like Cuba is probably knee-deep in Russia's war against Ukraine, so not good news to hear whatsoever, and it could turn out that number could be even higher than we're hearing right now, so not good. But moving into our next post here, this one goes to the Ukrainian Review. And we have another big story right here, and y'all might remember a few days ago, we actually reported on this on the channel. The Ukrainians had said that the Russians installed a new software upgrade on their missiles, which gave it the ability to evade the Patriot launchers and the Patriot air defense systems that the US gave to Ukraine, and it makes it a lot harder to shoot down Russian missiles. And today we're getting some more details about that. We are hearing that it has become very difficult to work on missiles that fly on a quasi-ballistic trajectory. That is, they fluctuate when approaching the target, and they're referring to Russian missiles, by the way. They say this complicates the work of the Patriot, and when shooting down ballistics, the system operates in automatic mode, and it becomes more difficult to calculate the point where the anti-missile will collide or explode next to the enemy's ballistic missile. So basically, in simple terms, what is happening here is the Russian missiles are evading the Patriot right at the very last second, right before the Patriot actually intercepts these Russian missiles. These Russian missiles are somehow getting off course and going a different direction, somehow through a software update. So I'm really not sure how that works in technical practice, but it sounds like the Ukrainians are citing that as a real reason that the Patriot is not working as good as it used to work. So if that is true, that is a very big problem right there that the U.S. needs to sort out quickly, because the Patriot is a cornerstone of air defense, and right now it sounds like the Russians are finding ways to evade it. So not good whatsoever on that front. But moving into our next post here, this one's going to go to Ocean Defender. Also last night, by the way, we did see a massive Russian drone attack on Ukraine, and also we saw a massive drone attack right on the border near Poland in Lviv, Ukraine, and of course that is very close to Poland, so that got the alerts going significantly last night, and also the airspace in eastern Poland being cleared out. But right here you can see thick black smoke was seen rising across the western city of Lviv in Ukraine, roughly 30 miles from the border with Poland, following multiple ballistic and cruise missile strikes, and also one-way attack drones. And right here you can see there is the scale of these strikes in Lviv, once again just 30 miles away from the Polish border, and that was a very big strike strike. So the Polish naturally got very concerned about this, and in our next post here, this one goes to Fitex Network. And also another reason the Polish were concerned is because it looked like one of the drones had actually passed Lutsk and was heading towards Volodymyr near the Polish border as well. So that also got them spooked, because as you can see right here, it looked like that drone was on a trajectory to go straight inside of Poland. But it turns out we didn't really get the clear evidence showing it went into Poland. Right now it's all speculation, and it looks like it probably crashed inside of Ukraine, but we're waiting on the Polish government to actually confirm that. So we did see that one errant drone right there, but also, by the way, we did get some news from the Polish themselves, and they said that Polish and Allied aircraft were actively operating in the area to shoot down any Russian drones coming into Polish airspace, while ground-based air defense and radar reconnaissance were on high alert. So the Polish were taking this very seriously, as you can see right here, and they once again sent the F-16s airborne, and also some other aircraft as well that we're about to show on Flight Radar 24 that we're jumping into right now in our next post, which goes to OSINT Defender once again. And in addition to the Polish F-16s that were airborne during this whole situation, we also saw an Australian E-7A Wedgetail airborne early warning and control aircraft that apparently just appeared over Poland, heading in the direction of the border with Ukraine, where these drone incursions were happening, inside of Ukraine that is, alongside an F-35A Lightning II, likely either Dutch or Norwegian, that briefly appeared but then went dark on radar and turned off its ADS-B and went flying over western Poland and eastern Poland. So very big news on that as well. We saw some very big deployments here of the Wedgetail from Australia, and also maybe a Dutch F-35A Lightning. So very big deployments as well, and generally those aircraft stay off the radar most of the time. They usually go dark during these drone incursions. So we also heard about that as well. But moving into our next post here, this one goes to Visegrad 24. And also, while that whole mess is happening inside of Poland and Ukraine, we're also seeing a very big mess happening right now in Georgia. And no, I'm not talking about Atlanta. I'm talking about the nation state, which of course we're seeing in the capital Tbilisi. We're seeing a major riot happening right now. And the best I can gather is it sounds like there's an issue with the election that people are not happy about. And there also appears to be a lot of people in the streets that are causing absolute hell because they're not happy with the result or something like that. I'm trying to make sense of it, but it's very confusing. I'm not totally up to date with Georgian politics. So it looks like massive riots here. That's one thing that we are certain about. So let's take a look at the video here and see how large these riots are and how quickly they're spreading right now in the capital of Georgia. And right here you can see there is absolute chaos going on right now inside of the capital of Tbilisi, and they are burning stuff to the ground. They are clearly wearing masks, and apparently they mean business. So it looks like, once again, in another country in the world, people have decided to burn down their own city to make a statement. So quite an interesting statement there as they burn down their own place. But very interesting to see that first video. But moving into our next one here, this one goes to Clash Report. And just to show you the size of this is not just like a group of people doing this. This is a very large group of people. And not everybody's violent in these protests, by the way. There is a riot going on. You just saw that in the last video. But there's also people just sort of like moseying around and sort of protesting normally. So there are the rebels in the crowd, and then there's also people just sort of moseying around. So let's take a look here. You also see that apparently protesters or rioters, whatever you want to call them, were marching toward the presidential palace as well. And I believe at one point they even tried to break in the presidential palace. So let's take a look at this video and see what's happening. Alright, so right here you can get an idea of just how large this crowd is. That's a lot of people in the streets right there. And they are all sort of making their way toward the Capitol here, the Capitol building in Tbilisi. And I even see a Ukrainian flag down there, actually, by the way. So you can see these people right here generally appear to be generally peaceful, for the most part, that is. But it clearly got out of control in certain parts of this whole thing right here. So pretty big protest. And once again, I'm not fully up to date on Georgian politics, but I believe it has something to do with the election that's currently taking place, or that took place. So moving on to our next post here, this one goes to Israel News Pulse. And let's move away from our news from Georgia for a second and move into our news here from Iran, because we did see apparently a major explosion at a fuel products warehouse in Tehran, and this happened last night, and we're not sure what caused this right here. There are rumors going around that maybe Israel and the United States are about to strike Iran again, but right now we are seeing a pretty large fire there in Tehran. And also we had gotten word, I believe a few days ago, that the Iranian president was trying to move the capital from Tehran to the southern part of Iran because he didn't want to deal with the water crisis there, at least from what we were hearing. So that seems to be a pretty big deal right here, that they're now having another major fire in Tehran, and the government basically wants to flee from this capital right now and go somewhere else and set up camp elsewhere. So very interesting to see that once again, and we're waiting on more details about what started this major fire here at the fuel warehouse. But moving into our next post, this one goes to Taiwan Security Monitor. And also we do have a little bit of news out of Taiwan as well. And moving into this post, it says Taiwan's military will hold live fire drills in the area located near China's coast in late October, so just in a couple of weeks. And the exercise zone reaches within 2 miles of China's coast, and all vessels are currently prohibited prohibited from entering the declared zone while the exercise occurs. So right here you can see this is the area, and this happens to be happening right during the time when Enforcer HQ is probably going to be offline while we move to a new state. So it seems like everything's going to pop off while we're gone, which is terrible timing, but that seems to be the way it works. But right here you can see, back to the topic, there is the area right here. They're going to be conducting live fire drills right near China's coast. I'm not sure how wise that is, to be perfectly honest, but it looks like the Taiwanese are taking a very bold action with this one and doing live fire right off of China's coast. So not sure what's going to happen with that, but we are certainly going to be watching that. Even if we are moving headquarters, we're going to be watching that, because that's a big one right here, and we'll have to wait and see how China responds to that. But with that, folks, that is actually our last post of the video. So if you've enjoyed the video and you found it informative, smack the like button and also subscribe to the channel as well for more daily real-time updates just like this one. And also, be sure to join us tonight at 10 p.m. Eastern on our nightly War News stream. And tonight is our Sunday night fundraiser stream. So it's always a big night on Sunday, so be sure to join us for that. And of course, help to raise more money for, most likely, it'll be a Ukrainian charity most likely tonight. And we will, of course, let y'all know that on the stream tonight. But be sure to join us for that. And also, by the way, if you want to support our channel financially and keep our journalism alive, you can do so on our Patreon page. And the link is in the description below for Patreon, where you can go over there and sign up for a monthly membership. And it could be as little as $5 or $10 a month. Any amount helps the channel tremendously, and we appreciate all of our Patreon supporters very much for helping to keep the channel running. And with that, folks, like I mentioned, we will see you all tonight at 10 p.m. Eastern. And with that, bye-bye for now.